Welcome back to episode 3, part 2 of Books and Bubbles. We are continuing our discussion on Allison Gunn's debut novel, Nowhere. This episode is going to be filled with spoilers, so if you have not had the chance to pick up that book yet, I highly recommend pausing here, go read that book, and then come back for this really fun discussion.
I want to know what the most spooky part of the book was for you guys. Which part had you the most scared?
So my first spookiest part of the book was when Gemma was trying to lure Abby into the woods. No, put the book down after that chapter. No way. I was petrified. I was like, I didn't even think I could finish that chapter. That was the first time I was like, five ghost all the way. And that was also before I knew what Appalachian folklore was. So had to reread the first 75 pages of the book. But yep, that was 100% my spookiest part of the book, like right off the bat.
Awesome.
For me, it was definitely... What happened?
What? She looks me in my soul and goes, awesome. Cool. That was crazy.
Just make that a
Your
thing every time
favorite
we're done
chaotic
talking.
group.
Nice. It's cool. Great job.
Yep, don't relate to that one. Okay. I'll never speak again. You thought that was scary?
Yeah, Sarah, that part of the book freaked me out for sure. Like, I was not okay with it. I was like, Abby, you are smarter than this. Do not go to the door. She seemed to be very aware that she shouldn't answer it. And she was like, everything's telling me no. But mommy says I can listen to her. So let me just go let this demon inside. I was not okay with it. But for me, I think the scariest part of the book was when Charlie was off with her friends in the woods. And that was when I thought we saw our first fairy ring, because she describes a circle in the woods that's backed up by logs. And I was, oh my gosh, here we go. We're getting into it. And Kendall is just grabbing onto her, talking so intensely while her friends are just wandering off. And in my notes on that part of the book, I was just thinking, Chrissy, wake up. Like Stranger Things, that was just repeating in my head over and over as I'm reading. I was like, please let this part be over. Please let this part be over. I'm not ready for whatever's about to happen. This is really bad. That's not Charlie.
That led me to think, like, what does Kendall know?
Yeah, I wondered what Kendall might have known too. I mean, I wonder if it's just because she was one of the townspeople that, she was being more aware of whatever was going on. But maybe it goes right back to that same thing you were talking about. Like, if you heard it, no, you didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, she seemed to know more than the other girls did, because she seemed to somewhat resist the forces that were there. Even the next day when the girls are walking hand in hand super creepily to school, she's just not quite with them in the same state that they are, to the point that Charlie crushes her hand and nods into the forest, and Kendall just has to go like, who knows what in the forest. Not good things. She never comes back.
I completely agree with you. I think that she knew what was going on because she was warning Charlie not to go off. And she's like, no, there's something bad going on. And then Charlie's like, no, we can't just leave our friends. And she's like, hell yeah, we can. Tuck and run, girl. Yeah. And Charlie, unfortunately, did not listen. And then they all just fell victim to the woods. Yeah. And it was not okay. But I was on the edge of my seat, just like, Chrissy, wake up. I thought that maybe she had already been possessed at the time because of the way she was grabbing onto her and stuff. It was way too creepy.
Yeah, at first I thought that she was also like already taken by the woods, and so she was keeping Charlie from going and like saving her friends. But no, I don't know. Because of that later scene where she was told to go and she never came back, that's what led me to that belief. But
yeah. It made it, I think, so much scarier because you could feel Kendall's fear.
Yeah.
And that was a huge difference to me.
For sure. Yeah, I think my scariest part of the book was probably towards the end when we have Rachel and Finn finally in the car and they're trying to drive out of this small town, and they just keep reaching the same spot. They turn back around and they keep ending up in the same spot over and over. We realize they're completely stuck.
It's like the Bermuda Triangle. Like, they're just going and going and going.
So knowing there was no escape just freaked me out so much, because at that point I was still holding out hope. In the car, I thought they had this in the bag, but yeah, that was truly terrifying to me.
Yeah, the scariest part for me, let me tell you about my immersive experience page. So I did see your text about reading forest noises, and everybody else came after you, but I was like, oh, that's a great idea. So I misinterpreted. You said you listened to like enchanted forest noises. That's great for you. I was like, oh, spooky. So as you guys know, I was about to go on a plane. So I downloaded a full playlist of just like creepy nightmare forest ambiance spook. And I was like, sounds perfect. Download.
The whole time, that's what I thought Paige was listening to. I'm like, wow, she's crazy. Like Halloween background Bigfoot noise going on.
That's what I was thinking too.
I think she did that on purpose. She was just screwing you over there.
Yeah, she like really said.
It really helps if you listen to really creepy forest
Yes.
noises. It really just breaks you out of your
I
spookiness.
did not say it was creepy. I said I was listening to forest music. I'm sorry, I didn't say enchanted. Yeah, no, that's got nothing on my owls and twigs. Well, I just looked up enchanted forest. I didn't say let me go into the forbidden forest.
I saw that and I was like, ooh, girl screaming eerily in the woods. Download. I'm not gonna lie to you. There was like a whole crow one that I had to skip every time because I was like, ooh, that one's too scary. But yes, I got on the plane and I listened to my very creepy, not fun, enchanting forest noises. And then planes are kind of scary right now in general. So I was a little anxious, and it was the longest descent I've ever been on a plane. Like, I've been on planes before. It's not like I'm anxious on planes in general. It's just right now there's scary news going on with them, and I am susceptible, I guess. I was like spooked. So my descent, though, was just 20 minutes long of like stomach dropping feeling, and also turns in the sky. I don't think I mentioned that. At this point, I was reading the chapters where Rachel finds Finn in the forest, and Finn's like, don't respond. Don't look over there. Keep your eyes here. And my stomach's going whoop, whoop, and the plane's going whoop, whoop. And I am just in chaos. So that was definitely the spookiest part. I was like, we're all going to die. Me, the book, all the rest of the passengers. Poor Tyler was sitting next to me on the plane, and I was like white knuckling his hand. Also, like, this plane has been descending for 20 minutes. How are you not freaking out?
It entered nowhere. It was never going to go higher land.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Dude, I cannot believe that you also let me take all the crap and said nothing about that. And you're just over here like, let me just really, like, just double down on this.
You're right. I did let you fall on that sword, and I was just like, that's a great idea.
For later.
Yeah. Well, I almost immediately texted you guys after I got off the plane and was like, guys, let me tell you about how I and everybody almost just died. But then I was like, save it for the pod. Which is so tired. I like hate that I thought that.
I think you both are absolutely insane for that.
Yeah. No, it was unhinged and very immersive, though. I will say I felt real fear and terror.
Yeah, my non-immersive reading with the lights on, sunshine on my skin. That was really nice.
Yeah, lights
that was
on.
nice,
I have turtle ambiance on. So there's turtles swimming on my TV with some light piano music, not spooky. I don't know where you guys' imaginations were going with forest noises helping, but I will die on that hill. That's crazy.
Yeah, I was looking at Roku City when I was watching this. It was great. I was less spooked.
I love the immersive experience when I'm reading.
Yeah.
I just have to be in the book. But like this one, I was still like, with the lights on during the day reading. This was not a nighttime book.
I can appreciate the immersive experience, but your reasoning was to make it less spooky,
Well,
and
yeah.
that's where you lose me.
Well, I wasn't listening to crows.
Yeah, those were really scary. I skipped. There was also like a howling whistle that kind of came in sometimes. That one, holy smokes, goosebumps instantly.
Well, could you imagine the dramatized reading of
Oh
this?
my
Oh my
gosh.
gosh.
No,
I couldn't do it. I don't think I'd be able to finish it.
Oh my God, the
Challenge
eyeballs were
accepted.
No.
Dude, I didn't think about that.
If you want us to record an immersive audio for that Wattpad, not
For the Mothman one?
Mothman and me, I don't know. I could make something happen.
Yeah, I would need some wing noises. Swoosh, swoosh. I won't tell you about the rest yet. You gotta download. I don't know, how does Wattpad work? I need to be vindicated on the internet later is what I need. I'm gonna point my finger at you guys. Help me.
At least she admitted she needed some help. Sorry, it was right there.
I want to get into a discussion on all these different characters that we meet in this book. So before we do that, let's do a bubble break.
So for our next drink, I made, we'll call it an Enchanted Forest gin fizz. We've got apple juice, lemon juice, club soda, gin, and a little sprig of rosemary for our forest vibes. I wanted to bring my Enchanted Forest for everybody. And if you guys have any interest in checking out our drinks, we've just started doing a little video on, what we're putting together with those. So there'll be some bonus content there for you guys to check out. So I hope you guys enjoy. Cheers.
Cheers.
So do we want to start off with our main character, Rachel, then?
Well, for me, I felt like she's a complicated character, right? She's going through a lot of, obviously, grief. And then on top of that, she's a mother trying to balance her children's and her spouse's grief. And then also betrayal in that relationship. It's just like uncomfortable some of the time that we're spent with Rachel. I think it's purposely written that way and so well done that way that I don't know about you guys, but when I was starting this book, I was like, Rachel girl, you're being too much.
I had a hard time with Rachel throughout the book. I liked her in some aspects, but I really thought that Rachel had a lot of personal things to work on. It seemed like she was bottling a lot of things up. She wasn't really talking to her husband very much, and I found that a little bit frustrating throughout the book. I mean, we know they're going through a really, really difficult time because her son has been, in her mind, murdered by her husband because he was driving drunk and her son died in a car accident. So we know that their relationship is strained, but they were not, in my opinion, trying very hard to work on it. They seem to both be kind of going into themselves, and we learned that Rachel was getting really destructive with her personal life. She's running around cheating on her husband all the time. It felt like she was just making a lot of really selfish decisions, and she didn't seem to be treating her coworkers very well either. Her communication skills were lacking. She thought everybody around her was incompetent. Seemed to probably be the case with the police force. She had been going through a hard time and seemed to be taking it out on everyone around her except for her children. I really do think that at her core, she was an excellent mother. She loved her children. I don't think that was ever in question, but I didn't really love the way she was conducting herself throughout the story. We see her, address those things and process that grief, but it was coming out in a lot of really ugly ways.
And I definitely think she was antagonizing Finn.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think Finn was still an alcoholic and he probably has anger issues, but I still think that she knew what buttons to push and push them on purpose.
I think they both did, honestly.
Yes.
Yeah. When Finn choked her in the hotel, when she essentially set him up to find her, she wanted to be killed by him.
Yeah.
And that was such a dark thing to read. And it was hard to wrap your mind around somebody being in that mindset. I'm going to go to a hotel. I'm going to cheat on my husband. I'm going to deliberately put my location back on. That way he knows where I am, wants to question it. I know he's got an anger problem, and I'm going to set myself up so that he kills me. And then I'm going to be sad about it when he changes his mind. It was just a sick moment.
But did she think he would actually kill her?
She wanted him to.
Well, she wanted him to, but I think there's a difference between having anger issues and then
killing someone.
Cold-blood murder your wife?
That's where I struggled the most with her because she, throughout the book, is obviously very selfish to pretty much everyone around her, but her kids were the one exception. She seemed to really care, trying to do the very best for them, except for that moment where you can't deny how selfish that moment is, because what happens to the kids in that scenario if she had been successful in getting Finn to kill her? She's dead and her husband has murder charges. He's in jail. Where are her kids?
I think the way that they were both processing with their grief really resonated with their character. You really saw two completely different sides of two grieving parents. She was so angry because she knew he used to drink and drive and she did nothing to stop him. So it made sense why she was so angry, and it also made sense why he was trying to better himself. We saw his development throughout the book. He was trying to be, I believe he wanted to be a better partner. I'm holding on. I really thought I wanted them to have a happy ending, but the way he was processing his grief and the way she was processing their grief, I think it was just so well written.
Yeah, I think that's the big difference there is that Finn acknowledged that it was his fault. He was trying to get sober and to be there for his kids. And you kind of get that snippet where you know that it is somewhat Rachel who knew that he was going to be drunk driving. She knew that about him. And so she should have a little sliver. It obviously is his fault at the end of the day for doing that. But you don't let your spouse do that if you know that that's what he's doing. So she should have been able to kind of process through and understand that she has a little bit of that blame too, but she seemed to kind of deflect and try to blame anyone but herself the whole time. It made sense from what we learned about their characters from prior to where the book starts, because we know that she cheated on her husband repeatedly without, telling him from the beginning. The way that they got together was by cheating on somebody she was with previously. So it tracks for her that that's the way she would be handling things, is blame other people. She doesn't seem like the type to take accountability for her own actions.
I felt like when I was reading from Rachel's POV, so many of the times I was rolling my eyes, or I was like, oh my gosh, girl, it's not all about you. She was so much in that headspace. Whereas with Finn's chapters, I felt like he was obviously grieving too, but the way he was processing it, I was not rolling my eyes as much. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. I could see myself doing something similar. I can connect the dots a lot more on your thought process.
Finn was probably my favorite character overall. He seemed like he was just trying to do his best, and he really seemed to be resonating with his faults. He was actively trying to work on it. You saw it when he was getting angry and then when he would take a breath and try to calm himself down. So it seemed like he was dealing with his grief in a different way than Rachel was. Rachel seemed like she was still in just that really angry space. And don't get me wrong, like Finn was angry, but he seemed really just angry with himself instead of others. I don't think that I'd want to be married to somebody that I knew, hey, if I do this, he's just going to come and choke me out. So I don't know what he might have been like before the accident, but it seemed like he was going through a lot of personal growth throughout the book. And he was the one that was able to kind of ground Rachel when it counted and said, nope, this is what we're doing. So I felt like you got to see the work that he was doing on himself kind of come out. And then he brought Rachel into his growth.
I did really like how both Finn and Rachel connected with their kids, though. I think he was so nurturing. And then surprisingly, like you would see how she was on the job and she would come home and be just as nurturing to her kids. And I thought that was also really nice.
Yeah, that switch up though was crazy, going from like talking to the kids and then talking to each other. They were constantly making stabs at each other when they're alone.
Yeah, and I think that kids are far more perceptive than parents give them credit for. Like it would have just, it's the same thing in every book, right? You just wish that people would talk to each other.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But it was a beautiful story. Despite the fact that this was a horror book, just processing grief. Like if you're somebody that's processing grief, you should read this. It was excellent.
What about the way Lucy was processing her grief and the pictures and stuff she was drawing? She gave me the creeps throughout the whole book.
Yeah, the thing that bothers me the most with that is the fact that Finn saw the same thing and then didn't say anything. Throughout most of the book, I was thinking that he was like a really excellent father and really, I mean, despite his shortcomings in other areas, but the fact that he didn't talk about what he saw, I think really damaged Lucy and could have changed everything. But he just chose to convince himself that he was, drunk. I mean, obviously, if you were in his shoes, it's hard to really accept that that was what happened or that that was reality. But if I was Finn and then I saw my daughter drawing the exact same thing that I thought that I was basically hallucinating because I was drunk, I would start to question things a little bit more or maybe talk to her. So I was really disappointed in that whole lack of communication there. That bugged me the most.
Yeah, I do think some of that came from Finn's character and his aversion to confronting Rachel in any aspect. He was just shutting down any kind of conflict with Rachel that maybe in some back corner of his brain, he was like, well, if I talk to Lucy about this, Rachel's going to find out and then I'm going to have to deal with her wrath. And that was super unhealthy and super toxic, which is one of the few shortcomings we see with Finn's character in the way he's processing his grief.
Yeah, he was definitely very scared of Rachel. We saw that in that first scene where he picks up the girls from school. She tells him, take the girls home, don't go anywhere, keep them inside. And he lets Charlie go off with her friends just because she knew that he smoked a cigarette. And he didn't want Charlie to tell Rachel that he smoked a cigarette. And that's crazy to me. Your kids could be in danger. Your wife isn't telling you to take them out of school early and to keep them home for no reason. But he was just so scared of that possible confrontation with Rachel. And he let Charlie go. And that drove me insane.
I have a note in my book for that part that just says, bruh. What are we doing? Like, this was clearly so important to your wife. And regardless of, like, where you're at, be united as parents, please. Yeah. Always.
Oh, yeah. Those girls knew. You could tell. Yeah. Oh, if I asked dad it this way or mom it this way. And they would antagonize the two against each other because the parents allowed that. It was super easy to do that.
She was trying to say that there's danger. Pick the kids up from school, and that doesn't happen very often. And he talked about how the school doesn't like that. So the fact that he argued with the school and still picked them up and then let her just go out on her own.
Yeah, I think part of it too is the resentment he had for her never fully telling him what's going on, because he wanted information like, what's happening? Why am I doing this? And she's like, just do it. And so that too, I think, bothered him.
Yeah, and Charlie was just like, how can I blackmail him into doing what I want to do? I was like, that's crazy. Sneak out. Lucy kind of scared me throughout the whole book. She almost was like a demon child without being a demon child. The way she just knew about everything and just was like, I'm scared. Like, somebody help me. Don't leave me alone. No windows, no doors. I'm like, what is going on the whole time? I thought, and she was so young. How would you feel if your 6-year-old is running around saying this stuff to you? I think I would be scared to sleep at night if I have somebody being like you're going to die. You're going to die every single day. They're going to come get you. I'm like, oh my God, what's going on?
Yeah, I feel like going to the psychologist wasn't enough. And it does make you wonder, too, what if they had just let her talk to the people at the church? What might have been caught, or what would they maybe have noticed sooner? She did such a good job of adding tension throughout the entire book. Lucy really kept you on edge.
And she just gave like main character energy throughout the whole book.
Yeah.
I kind of loved her, but I was also terrified of her at the same time.
For me with Lucy, I think that the scariest part when she was like screaming and losing her mind was when she was at school and she was saying like, don't come pick me up. Don't come pick me, like run. They're going to come and get you. And like the school was being so weird with everything that she was saying. And they were not listening to her. That was Lucy's peak energy, I feel like, for her being scared. And scared the crap out of me in that moment. It's about to go down. This is when shit gets real.
Yeah, it seemed like she just wanted her dad to leave, to be saved. She knew that it was too late for everybody. She's like, get the hell out of here while you still can.
I was a little disappointed with Rachel not catching on to what was going on in the town and being so dedicated to everybody's on meth and that's why everything's crazy, because she heard the voices in the woods immediately when she found that hiker. How are you not putting this together? How are you the one person that I know for a fact did hear this already as an adult, and you got a bad feeling? Now you've got somebody literally telling you what's going on when she talks to the wise girl. It just blew my mind that she wasn't putting the dots together sooner. So I was a little bit disappointed in our police chief with that. But at the same time, like, how could you really start to investigate it that way? Because you'd be insane.
I feel like you almost are just hoping that's not the case. So you're just trying to find other answers that aren't that, because you don't want to even really consider that as an option.
Yeah. Well, I think when they were also describing the crime scene at the very beginning, they were describing how somebody on meth could have acted that way. So I do think, I know she heard the voices, but sometimes it's like, are these people skitzing because they're on meth, or who knows like what drugs, if it's laced, but like who knows what chemical reaction they're having in their brain to be making them act a certain way. So I know she heard the voices, but if she so quickly dismissed them, what did she think everybody else was doing? And especially when you do drugs, your pupils dilate and they get all nice and big. So she was trying to look into everybody's eyes. And when their pupils were all big and black, she's like, oh, must be the drugs.
She obviously did have a suspicion, though, because she wanted to get that medical examiner to expedite the process. So I think to herself, she knew something was happening. I don't think she wanted to fully accept that.
Yeah.
Kind of in denial, like she'd deal with that once that examiner came back with the results. But it seemed like she had an idea that something wasn't right from the beginning.
I'd like to see more of like Charlie and Lucy's relationship before Charlie was Charlie thing.
Yeah.
Before
Charlie killed Lucy.
Charlie's character, she puzzled me a little bit. She was just such like a follower, but then the way her whole interaction with her family was throughout the whole book, and bringing it back to the whole meth thing, the way the mom was questioning her in the police station too, I was like, everything about Charlie's character, like, always put me, I feel like every character put me on edge, but she was always putting me on edge too. I thought she was just going to kill everyone. I really did. I just thought like everyone was dead. And in my mind, like there was no doing anything else besides everybody just dying in the book.
It was hard to kind of relate to her character as much, like, because we just had so little time. I just wish we didn't have to spend so much time with the Charlie thing, because the Charlie thing was scary.
It was very scary. It kind of gave us a sneak peek too of why she was like that, because she saw all of her family members grieving so extensively, and she didn't think she had the space to grieve as well. She didn't want to add on to their grief. She didn't feel comfortable kind of expressing what she was feeling to her family members. So it made sense why she was that angsty teenager. And I really liked that chapter.
Oh, her friends were great to her.
For about 30 seconds.
Let me have those 30 seconds, Paige.
No, you can have it. I was glad to see it. I wish that we gotten a little bit more, because then once Charlie was, I gave up on Charlie so quick.
I was
just like, oh, nice knowing you, girl.
Yeah. And that was so early in the book. That's what I mean with like how spooky it was early on. It wasn't just like alluding to some spooky thing that's going to happen. It was like, oh, this is happening right now.
I mean, that was like the first taste of like Rachel's job that we get, is she finds that mutilated body in the woods from the hiker.
Horrifying.
Oh yeah, that was probably my second spookiest moment, I would say. Oh, this is just real.
I thought the spooky part of it was when she went back to the police station and she was talking about it, but they were like, oh no, clearly like he cut his own face off and that's why his hand was dangling, and see this and that. That part describing the body when they were at the police station, I think that scared me more.
Like, also, how could you ever think that he did that to himself? Like, gouging out your eyes, cutting out your tongue, shaving off half your face, and then, like, stringing your body half up on a tree. Like, no.
Yeah. What kind of drugs are they on? Like, that's insane.
Maybe now we know why Rachel was so angry. She saw a lot. She had a lot to process.
Yeah. I bring it back to what Bethany was saying about her friends. I love that chapter, and I love how Charlie was like explaining how she was feeling, and then her friends were like pulling her back in. I thought that was such a good connection, and I am happy we got that little glimpse of like, she may have been rebellious, but like her friends were her family. They were her safe spot. So I did really like going back to that. I thought that was the one ray of sunshine that like we actually got to read, even though she was not describing very like, warm, fuzzy feeling stuff.
Every time Charlie came up, I was just like, oh, no.
You're like, can't trust her.
No.
She's crazy.
No, because then when she gets back, Lucy immediately clocks that is not Charlie anymore. So I was sold. I trusted Lucy with my life. So.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I was like, Lucy knows.
Lucy's was a really hard death for me, too. I was really holding on to the fact that, Lucy seemed to know so much just from the beginning. I really thought she was going to be the one to make it to the end. And yeah, that death was hard.
She kind of made it to the end.
I don't want to
Everyone make it.
That wasn't Lucy.
Who would you relate to most out of the three friends, Gemma, Sarah, or Kendall?
I like to think that I would relate to Kendall the most because she seemed to have the forethought to not go off and listen to everything. And she seemed to be really trying to still protect Charlie despite the fact that, everything was happening, and she seemed to resist a little bit more. So I'd like to think that I would be Kendall. But at the same time, I would probably be Charlie going after my friends. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I was thinking I would probably be Gemma. And I would be following Sarah right into the woods. I would be like, don't leave me alone out here. And I would just be, and I saw like Kendall and Charlie in such an intense conversation. I'd be like, I'm going with her. Like, don't leave me alone here.
That would be my fear. I just wouldn't want to be alone.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be the one suggesting going after those weird noises. I'd want to get the hell out of the forest.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
It's like, what's the quickest way to do that? Who's going to do that with me?
Yeah, that would make you like Kendall, though, because Kendall was like, oh, Charlie's going in. I guess me too. I guess I would say the same thing. I would hope I would be Kendall, but I'd probably be like Sarah, where you don't get a lot of details. She just kind of like immediately gives in and dies. That would be me.
Maybe go, what's that?
Yeah. Do you guys see this? No?
Do you think Lucy and Abby are comparable characters?
Yeah, I think a little bit. Abby specifically, what you were talking about earlier, just when, Gemma comes to the door to try to scoop her up. I mean, she did scoop her up. But I thought that Abby seemed to have that same intuition about like, okay, something's going wrong. Lucy had that same, like, something's going wrong. And I feel like when you get that fear factor from the kids, it just makes it so much more intense because you see them like basically begging for help or trying to like work out this situation, like perceiving that something's wrong, but not knowing what actions to take because they're so little. And she was a really great red herring too, when all the kids' bodies were coming up and everything. He wanted to believe that it was Abby's body and not Lucy. So I think that Abby's character was really there to just like up that fear factor so much.
yeah, I held on to hope that was Abby for far too long.
Say, I was like, hopefully they found Charlie dead. I don't know. And then when they're like, she's small, I was like, Abby? It's not Lucy. There's no way it's Lucy.
No, never Lucy.
Yeah.
I don't think it really has like a connection, but I was like, why do both of like the youngest girls in the story have not the most knowledge? I don't think it was knowledge, but maybe they just still had like such a fear factor in them of like, I'm not going outside in the dark. But I was like, why were they the only two that was like, don't do it, I don't want to do it? And then I don't know, I was like, how did they know?
I feel like Abby was there specifically just to make you realize like this is going to affect everybody in the town. I was really glad that we got that extra chapter from somebody outside the family though, because it made it so much scarier. Like, it just added that extra level of nobody's safe.
Her inner monologue of like, this is scary. I probably shouldn't go out there. It's like nighttime. I shouldn't go into the forest. But it's Gemma, and I'm supposed to trust Gemma.
Mommy says I have to listen to Gemma.
All the other kids are in there, so I can be in there.
She's smiling and waving at me.
Yeah.
Gemma, go home.
That was a tough chapter.
Didn't Abby's dad see her like walking downstairs at one point? What do we think about that?
How do you not just go after your kid? It seemed like he was really half asleep, and I mean, thought she was just going to get a glass of water, but if that's not a regular thing, I feel like I'd just still want to check on my kid. I don't think I could let him be wandering around and be like, oh, I'm just going to go back to bed.
Yeah, especially so young.
Yeah.
It's like, just help her.
Yeah, it did seem like, I don't know if this is related to this family or not, but throughout the story, there's a lot of hint of like meth being a problem in the community. So I wonder if maybe some of the townspeople do have struggles with addiction that we don't necessarily know the full context of. I mean, there's nothing in there to hint that he was, but I wonder if maybe he's not the most attentive parent.
Yeah.
I think that I never really like inferred that about the characters. I never really thought about that, but that is a really good thing to bring up. Like the Wise family was just known as like
Meth dealers.
Yeah, I thought of that too because it's not really talked about in the book, but they're known to be this drug dealing family in that town. This town is super religious and they're all like holier than thou kind of attitude. But I did always wonder like which one of these townspeople is also the ones that are being sold meth by the Wise family.
Yeah, that's so true. We didn't see enough of that other than the people that were like known to hang out with the Wises. I think the only one that we knew of maybe for sure was AJ.
and he was skitzing the whole time. So it's like, what did he see in the woods? I was so torn at first. I'm like, did he see something? Did he not? Is it going to be there? And then there actually was something there. Oh, that's kind of crazy. Is he actually on meth or was he scared? Like, what has he seen in his life? I don't know.
Yeah. The Wise family lore was really interesting in general. I was really hoping that we were going to get to talk to them a little bit earlier on in the book. I thought for sure that was going to be Rachel's like first stop after she talked to, I think it was AJ in the woods at the first crime scene with the hiker. I knew they were going to have all the good stuff. It had to live there. But then by the time she actually makes it out there, they're basically all gone. And she's just finding this girl who's tied up to a wall because her mom couldn't leave her alone by herself. And she needed to make sure she wasn't dragged off into the woods by the fairies or whatever we were wanting to call these things that are taking over. And she's just dumping all the information out. And she's telling them about how her mom used to put toys at the edge of the woods so that the spirits are going to play with these toys instead of their children, and that it's all Rachel's fault because once she arrested them for the meth, then it made sense for Aiden to be the first child that would be taken. It was so crazy. She had so much information, and I just wanted so badly for Rachel to tie her back up before she left. I know she couldn't leave her like that. It made no sense to. But oh my gosh, please let that poor girl just stay in that room.
I feel like she should have taken her with her. She's an unaccompanied minor just sitting in this home.
Yeah.
Like, take that girl. She's in trouble.
You're so right. She just like
So
was
true.
like, you're a Wise. I'm not taking you.
I did love that full circle moment where you find that out, though, because the Wise family have been written off by the town. They're known as just the drug family, but they were the ones that were actually protecting the town this whole time. Like, this probably would have happened so long ago if that mom wasn't offering up those gifts for the spirits.
Yeah, that's a good point. I did like that. It was like a wholesome in a way where you're like, they're not bad people. They just do bad things.
Yeah. I will say, like, for me, when they were going through all of that and when Jeremy starts talking about stuff that his grandma used to tell him about and stories he grew up with and everything, it seemed like he was really trying to stop Rachel from listening to the girl. And I started getting really suspicious of Jeremy at the time. Why don't you want her to connect these dots? Throughout the book, I was watching Jeremy like a hawk. Do I like you? Do I not like you? Do I like you? Do I trust you? I don't know. But that part of the book specifically, after reading that, Jeremy's on my list. I am super sus, and I did not let it go until they ended up in the woods together.
But what if you just knew the thing? If you see something, no, you didn't. And so he's like, don't talk about this, guys.
Yeah.
Like, let's keep this hush.
Yeah.
That's so true. I didn't give people enough credit for that.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. So speaking of Jeremy, I see what you're saying with his susness. Personally, for me, at the end of the book, when he's in the forest with Rachel and like all in and really having her back after she like comes to it, because I guess she like passed out, and then he's like, here's the sitch, Rach, everything's like falling apart and I'm gonna help you out. And at that moment I was like, okay, this man has been redeemed. I like this man so much. So I was really rooting for him and Rachel to escape, but obviously, you know, things didn't happen. Especially because, like, with the whole police force in general, Jeremy was really the only competent one on the force.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that he was still just described as this man-child who's only interested in women.
I mean, he showed up for work,
He
as
did
far as
show
I'm
up for
concerned.
work. And he went with Rachel every time, even though it was a fight. He was there, and Marcus and Lou were like, nope, going home. My shift's over.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a lot of respect for him too in that scene where Rachel is so angry at Finn. She thinks Finn dragged her children into the forest and did something to them. And she's going off with her gun, like planning to kill her husband. And he is not having it. He's like, you do not know what happened right now. Like, I'm disarming you. This isn't happening. You're not going to kill your husband over this when you don't know the whole situation. And I had a lot of respect for that too, because he just was kind of the person who grounded her in that moment. And I mean, I wish he had that gun later, but
I was so happy to be wrong when he finally did that. I was like, oh, thank God. Like, I just did not want it to go any other way.
All right, so I want to circle back to Aiden because I don't think we talked about him much. We like touched on him a little bit, but like obviously he's the reason why our family is grieving. So what are your thoughts and feelings on Aiden?
I was paying very close attention to the whole Aiden thing throughout the book. At the very beginning, when Rachel goes off into the woods, I mean, gosh, that chapter was just so immersive when she's walking through the woods and everything for the first time. When she felt the little fingers on her wrist, did anybody else wonder if it was her son?
oh no.
I was so like, this kid got. Her son is an evil spirit in the woods. Or I thought that the way the book was going to end up playing out was that she was going to be able to kind of save his soul. And I was really looking forward to that. Unfortunately, I was disappointed in the end. But I felt it was like him reaching out for his mom, like, I'm here, come find me. And I mean, that is definitely what the message was supposed to be. But those little fingers around the wrist, I definitely thought it was like her son. So the entire time I just kept thinking that like we're looking at Aiden's evil spirit. The way he was described in the beginning, he was the perfect little boy. He didn't do anything wrong. Rachel and Finn did a really great job co-parenting him and felt a very special way towards him that they didn't really seem to experience with the other girls. It seemed like Lucy was very much a daddy's girl and Charlie was like her mom. And then Aiden seemed to maybe be the best of both of them. And they were able to kind of come together in the way that they were parenting them. I don't know. That was just my perspective, I guess. But with Aiden specifically, because he was described as such a little angel, red flag, red flag. I'm sure he was a lovely kid when he was, actually Aiden. I was just so suspicious of it the whole time. And I really liked hearing about the different dynamics with the different kids.
I will say something that I had an issue with both of them is that they seem to very much favor Aiden. And we see that from Charlie's POV too, that she knew that, like she knew he was the favorite. So that was a little bit difficult to read too, where the kids are aware of who the favorite kid is.
I don't know, because there was a part in the book where it described all three of the children and how they all were. I don't know if it was like as babies or growing up. He was the perfect child. But I guess from what you were saying, like, is that just what they remember of him? Like, are they remembering the good and not the bad? Because I do believe that probably happens a lot when you lose someone in any way.
I was sus about his body never being found. I didn't know what that was going to mean. I didn't know if he was going to be like one of the things in the woods, but them never finding his body and recovering it was strange to me.
I wholeheartedly, for a solid 30 seconds, thought that the body in his bedroom was his body.
Oh, I totally believe. Even when they were like, it's a doll, I was like,
No.
you have glamour on or something. That's a body.
You're on the meth. That
Yeah.
is literally the body. So I thought that was so creepy. I was like, how did his body get there? And then for Rachel to blame it on Charlie.
Oh my God.
That's crazy.
Yes. I was like, how can you? Because for a lot of the book, she was like rooting for Charlie and like proud of her as her own little rebel. And then she turns around and she's like, yeah, my daughter did this horrendous thing. Like, what? How?
I feel like my favorite Rachel Charlie moment, even though Charlie wasn't Charlie at the time, was just when Rachel immediately pins her down and is trying to look in her pupils. She's like, what are you on? This is not my kid right now. I don't know. That part stuck out to me so much.
That had to be so horrifying too. If you like truly believed that was your sister or daughter, like Finn thought it was Charlie 100%. And he's like, what are you doing?
Yes.
And Lucy's just sitting there eating her like pancakes or waffles and is like, what's going on?
Oh yeah, the pancakes that Charlie doesn't know how to make.
Yeah. I was like, this is red flags.
Like, good morning, mother and father. Here's your pancakes and your coffee. Like,
yeah.
hell no, I'm good. Another person I definitely want to talk about is Michelle. She was kind of a side character, but she had a lot going on. Very complex character. We find out a lot of kind of crazy information about her.
Yeah, Michelle had a lot to tell us. I feel like her chapter where she just explained everything like with the hiker once she got her results from the autopsy was crazy. I mean, how long had it been? Maybe 40 years since he had been seen? And he started off in Michigan, and then we get all the lore behind kind of like what's going on, except for the lore can't even make it back to the town because the town is just freaking nowhere. That part of the book was so intense for me, I couldn't put it down.
And the catch there was that it had been that many years, but he was dead the same age that he was when he went missing. So he was still that 20-year-old person, just found, states over 40 plus years later. It was so creepy. I feel like I would read a whole book on his like origin story because it sounded like the reason that he was in this in the first place was to try to like saving the children in Michigan. Like he was trying to protect them, and then he just vanished. Yeah. And he showed up in Virginia all these years later, still the same age as he vanished. And I want to know like what he was doing leading up to vanishing, like what he had going on for that time.
I just hated that it was from Michigan.
Yeah, me too.
I kept going, Minnesota. I don't know why.
You do not want that book written.
I just don't want to find out what story that maybe originated from, because I'm sure that if you go to look something up about it, there's got to be more information, and I've been too scared to look.
I didn't think about that because she's
I don't want to know.
And she researches this stuff.
I'm sure that she is. Allison, please don't tell me. I live here.
For sure. I was like, don't go into any lore woods in Michigan, please.
Michelle connected the dots so well right away with just these bits and pieces, and she hasn't even experienced the things that everybody else has. She just was accepting of like, oh no, something supernatural is going on and we need to go now. Like, this is no longer fun and games. We are involved.
It was also wild when she was taking all this stuff to the sheriff and he was just like, no, it's fine. It's fine. I was like, way to girl boss, gatekeep, and gaslight, sir. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, we also find out some interesting history from her, too. We know that she was somebody that Rachel had been having an affair with.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and she also changed the medical records of Finn after the accident. He, like, blew a breathalyzer that was way higher than what she reported or something. Like, she changed it so that he wasn't drunk driving, which I thought that was kind of crazy. Rachel still has her wrapped around her finger to pull that favor.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. When you were going back into, like, the whole history with Rachel and Michelle, it really seemed like Rachel just provided a lot of trauma for Michelle to deal with. She's like ripping her Bible in half, and she's just so upset because, she's getting into this new relationship and doesn't want to be with Rachel anymore. And I mean, obviously that's got to be like a hard thing for Rachel to accept when she seems to be like, potentially in love with Michelle. Doesn't seem that way with the way she was treating her. I really didn't like how involved Michelle still was with the family, just with the whole affair thing. I couldn't get past it.
Yeah, I think it's more complex than that too, because Michelle wasn't just like dating somebody else. She was dating this pastor and kind of changing her whole belief system and kind of like almost queer shaming Rachel. Like she wanted to delete the fact that they had dated at all. And so I think that's where Rachel was so angry about it. It wasn't necessarily that she had moved on, and maybe part of it was that, but also that she felt now like judged and like a part of Michelle's past that Michelle wanted to completely erase and never mention because it was like her dirty past that she isn't okay with anymore.
I guess I just thought it was hypocritical because Michelle was also her dirty little secret.
Yeah,
and it was
fair.
like, I couldn't, it was like, you can't be hard on her for wanting to go her way. I mean, the queer shaming was a problem, but it seemed like there was a little bit of a double standard in the way that they were treating each other. I didn't like it at all. I was like, that needs to stop right away.
Yeah, definitely a toxic relationship overall, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do think that like part of is that she admits at the end of the book, like she's like, I should have never pretended to be straight, but maybe Rachel was seeing some of that and being like, girl, don't do it because you'll end up like me.
That's true.
All right. So like speaking of Michelle dating a pastor, it was totally Pastor Paul, right? That we got his POV later.
Oh, I didn't make that connection until just now.
What?
I'm so serious. Until you said that, it did not click for me, but that makes so much sense.
Oh, dude, let me tell you my whole side. So I thought this book was going to go a completely different way. And I thought where it was going was because there's these dolls that the church is giving out and like the church comes in and all these weird stuff starts happening. But I really thought the church was the big bad in this. And I thought somehow they were making a supernatural cult that was just hiding in plain sight with just like praise Jesus. But like everybody else was like, no, there's some messed up stuff happening in the back. And I thought the dolls had something to do with it somehow because they were giving the kids the dolls. And then none of that happened. So I was like, wow, that was a total fanfic I just wrote in my head. That didn't happen.
Mothman Part 2.
Oh my gosh. No, speaking of those dolls, I thought the exact same thing with the dolls coming from the church and everything. I thought the church was going to be at the center of like all of the evil. But I don't understand exactly why the dolls came into the book other than to freak us out, because I felt like it was just like one of those horror story like staples, like, oh, we need to put some creepy dolls in here because they never came back up again.
Oh yeah, pure horror for sure.
Yeah. Other than to be dead bodies that I was convinced were actual dead bodies for way too long.
Yeah. And like, what kind of doll are you buying that is supposed to be like the same size as a child that's supposed to walk with you?
No, that's horrifying.
No, I don't want to find that in anybody's closet.
Hard pass.
You know, that did make me think of when I was a kid, I had a doll that was like taller than me when I was like little. Yeah, it was like a, I don't know, child-sized doll, but like taller than I was. And she freaked me out so bad. She lived in my mom's closet. And every once in a while, she'd like make an appearance. And not like in a spooky, like she'd just show up. But I'm sure my mom was like, here, Maggie, here's your doll. And I was like, I don't like her. I was like, she freaks me out.
Did she walk with you?
No, she didn't walk with me. She just was a
For
doll.
some reason, I thought you had like the same creepy doll from the 90s or something.
Yeah, that church scene really freaked me out, though. I don't know about you guys, but that was one of the creepiest scenes by far.
Oh, yeah. I mean, as soon as Pastor Paul, like, you know, starts talking to everybody and he's like, let's pray for all the kids that are lost. And he's like really questioning why there's so few children there. I was like, okay, cool. We're going to actually have this moment where we're going to try to fight this evil. And then it's like, actually, I'm going to light myself on fire. And I mean, at that point, I was just shocked. I was like, this is just not how I expected things to go. And from that point on, I feel like I was just cruising through the book. I was like, I have no notes. Like, I have no idea what's going on anymore. Yeah. I was just along for the ride. It was crazy. Lucy seemed to be, you know, gravitating towards her grandma's rosary and everything.
Oh, yeah.
And that seemed to like be protecting her. So then once we got that actual POV from Pastor Paul, I was like, okay, maybe I trust the church. He's like, why haven't they talked to me? I can help. I can do this. What is going on? Why am I out of the loop? So I started to trust him for a second, and then he's just lighting himself on fire. And I was like, what are we doing anymore? Everybody's just walking out of the church. Pastor Paul's on fire. Everything's gone to crap now. Like, there is no hope. The church is gone.
The church is not here.
No, it was crazy. That was just unexpected.
Yeah, I was just too suspicious because at that point in the book, there's a lot of people hanging out in the forest already. And so Pastor Paul's in this youth group. So there's just a bunch of teenagers. I was horrified. As soon as he's like, let's pray. I'm like, please don't close your eyes right now. Like, keep your eyes on these children.
Oh, that's such a good point. I was so sus of the church for so long that I was like, this is where shit's going to hit the fan.
So now that we've had a chance to talk about all of our characters here, I think we should take another bubble break, make our next drink, and then get into the rest of the book.
Sweet. All right, so for this bubble break, I decided to make a black-eyed drink, if you will. Obviously, we know that the creatures, we haven't really talked about them. We're definitely going to. But they all have those really dark, black, huge pupil-y eyes, which is horrifying. So as a nod to that, I made a little black-eyed drink. Cheers.
Cheers. That is strong.
I still think it's just tart.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's just tart.
Yeah.
Sorry, Bethany,
like it,
you must
though.
have gotten all the booze.
That's okay. It tracks.
She wanted more.
Yeah.
Check out the TikTok for that reference because we have some behind the scenes making the drinks. And that one, yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, that was just pure chaos. Fun fact.
Yeah, I think that we haven't talked much about these creatures and how creepy they look, though. Their eyes turn completely black. Like, it seems like the farther and farther they get possessed or whatever we're going to call it, their eyes are just disappearing until the entire eye is black.
Yeah, it seemed like they also described, I mean, I could be wrong, but I think they described the mouths the same way, too. It was just like at the core of these beings, like there was just this dark nothingness. And it was like super eerie to read about. So I just pictured that like for like any orifice, they were just filled with this like evil.
Yeah, and their smiles were super wide too. Like, I would say it's just like a little bit too creepily wide. Like,
Yeah,
super unsettling.
unnatural.
Yeah, I almost every time I pictured these creatures, I was picturing them like from the movie Smile, where I don't think their pupils were necessarily as dark, but like the big smile on their face, I was like, ooh, no, thank you.
See, I can't watch scary movies. I can't. Despite my like Enchanted Forest vibes while I was reading this book and my immersive experience, I to this day cannot watch a horror film. I have no interest in it. If I do want to try to watch a scary movie, I've done it once before. I think I watched The Boy.
Ooh.
Yeah. It was
That's a
awful.
spooky one.
It was awful. So it was way worse. No,
Why?
because I was told it was a
Immersive.
mystery. And it's not. And then I started figuring that out about a third of the way through. I was like, I am way too scared. And I started going on to, there's so many websites that exist, guys. And there's one that seemed like it's just a mom website. And they would go on and just like list out all the spoilers that could possibly happen. That way, like, you know, everything bad that's going to happen when it happens and the context of the whole situation. That way parents can decide whether or not they want to show it to their kids. So I just spoiled the whole movie for myself. I was like, I know exactly what's going on. I can take this. Like, it's fine. Nightmares for weeks still.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but like that's the only way that I can get myself through is by like looking at these parent websites to check myself.
And then when you read a horror book, you're like, I'm just going to listen to
Well, it's just a
forest
book.
noises.
It's totally different. I feel like you can kind of handle your mental picture a little bit more. So I was just like, in those moments, I was like, I'll just close my eyes.
You're like, I'm dimming this.
Yes,
Okay, so you close your eyes and hear the forest noises, and that's super comforting.
Yeah, it was like a security blanket.
Well, I think that's so strange that like you bring that up because like normally with horror movies, what makes it so scary is the sound. There's things that say like, oh, if you watch a scary movie without sound, you're not actually going to be scared because when there's a jump scare, it's just going to look like something's playing. Like you're not going to hear what actually scares you. But when you're reading a book, like you can't close your eyes, you can't turn the sound off if you're having a non-immersive experience. So I'm out here reading this book so scared, and I'm like, I'm only going to find out what happens if I keep reading it. There was nothing to watch, and I was like, oh my gosh, the anticipation.
Yeah, this one like stuck with me too. Like I'd put the book down and be done reading it for now, and it's just living still in my head. I'm still playing through the scenes. What's going to happen next? It's creepy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot with it. I don't know how I handled it. I just chose to be okay, and I was.
Yeah, those parent websites my mom actually used when I was growing up. And I think they're counteractive in some respects. Maybe it's just the way my mom was using it. We went to go see Avatar, right? 3-hour long movie. And she reads through it and she's like, there's a scary part. And I was like sitting there the whole time, like, is there a scary part? Where's the scary part? I was so scared. And she did explain to me, she was like, about 2 hours in, this cat like jumps out and it's scary. And so I'm a child though while we're watching this, and I'm like, how long is 2 hours? I have no idea. I've been sitting here for so long, and I was just on edge the whole time. Like if I could sit in the movie theater with a clock like on and like watch the movie at the same time, I probably would have been doing that. Yeah. So caution with the mom sites. You can induce trauma on your children, or maybe I'm just anxious. I don't know.
Okay, so I had a question for everybody. Who did you think was on the cover? Did you put much thought into that?
Ooh.
I didn't think about that at all.
Me either. I knew, like, I loved the cover art though.
It's so creepy. Like
Yeah.
if that does not sell you on this book, I don't know what will. It's haunting, but wow.
Yeah.
Did you have someone in mind?
I did. I did think it was Charlie, but for some reason, when I was reading Charlie's character, like I kind of thought she would have been like a tomboy. If you don't see the cover, the girl looks like she has like this long wavy hair. It looks like she's kind of in a dress. So I was like, I don't know who I think it is. It kind of looks like she would be older. So I didn't think it was Lucy, but I always pictured her as a tomboy. So I was like, I don't know who was on the cover of this book. So
That's such a good point. Yeah, it doesn't really vibe with what you would picture for Charlie's character. But I definitely, like, if you asked me that question, I would have said Charlie until now.
But then you also have to keep in mind, once it was the Charlie thing, remember they were dressing differently. It said that their clothes didn't really make sense. They were wearing weird like shoes, like mismatched. So it could be Charlie just wearing something bizarre.
Yeah.
I'm just glad it's not like the girl in the white.
Oh, yeah, the angel thing.
Angel,
Yeah.
demon.
Yeah. Yeah, speaking of the cover, something super horrifying. Tyler's niece told me, because I'm reading this book. All right, she's 7, okay? So Lucy is 6, similar age, right? Comes right up to me and goes, where's the rest of the girl? And I was like, oh, she's behind the tree. And she goes, no, she doesn't fit behind the rest of the tree. Where's the rest of the girl? And I was like, well, she's behind the tree. What do you mean? What do you mean, where's the rest of the girl?
That's so scary.
That gave me like nightmares.
Why did she
That's
think
so
of that?
true, though.
No, she's right. Like if you look at it, she is right. The proportions are so off that that girl does not fit behind that tree. But
It's enough for her to say something's wrong.
yeah, she was like, why are you reading that?
I'd be side-eyeing my niece for the rest of forever. I'd be like, why did you notice that?
I literally was like, I'm gonna lock my door tonight. And I did. It's fine. She didn't get me.
She'll see this episode when she's like 27 and be like, wow, Maggie was just roasting me.
She was like, I had such a fun time, and I did have a great time, despite.
What did you guys think was the most shocking part of the book?
For me, it was definitely kind of going back to Michelle's chapter when we just got like all of the information about the hiker. I'm still not over the whole Michigan aspect with that. It was just way too much for me. But that part, like, there was just no words.
All fear, no words.
Yeah, I was just like, whoa. Yeah, I'm not going into the forest for a very long time. I don't know about you guys.
No, I've been terrified. We have forest behind our house, so when I take my dog out, like, I don't take him out at night. I have my husband do it. I'm like, I'm good. I'm not opening that door. Thank you very much.
You're like, I know too much. Go for it.
If you hear anything, no, you didn't.
For me, the most shocking part was actually finding out that Lucy was dead, because I was delulu with Rachel for like way too long. I was like, no, she's not dead. There's no way she's dead. And then, you know, she died. And I was like, what? I did not see that coming.
Yeah, Abby gave you a really good reason to not think it was Lucy for a minute.
Oh, yeah. She's great.
Yeah, she's also just the character I really wanted to survive. So it was definitely hard to accept without
No body, no crime.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I was like, did she die?
Horrifying.
Right, I want to know, at what point in the book did you guys lose hope? Because I stayed delusional way too long. At what point did you think it was just completely doomed?
So I definitely started losing hope when they went to visit the wise girl. Like when they untied her, and I was just couldn't believe like Rachel's character. I was like, is she naive? Is she also delusional? Like, what does she think is actually happening? Because she actually has like her daughter who is terrified, screaming every day, like that something terrible is going to happen. And she's like, oh, you know, she's just a kid. Like, that's fine. Like, to her imagination, it's like almost what I chalked it up to be in my mind. But then we have this girl like doing the same exact thing. She's having the same terrors that her daughter's going to have. And she's like, yeah, you know, I just don't believe her. Like, she could just like be on meth. She's part of the meth family. So she just kind of let it be. That's when I started losing hope, because I was like, if Rachel's not going to start coming around, I just don't see it being a happy ending.
I wish that I had maybe given up a little bit sooner, because the ending was so hard for me.
Yeah.
I hung on to hope the entire time. I really thought that when Rachel and Finn got to like finally have their moment where they were talking, I was like, oh, they solved it. I thought it was going to like be like Freaky Friday. They learned their lesson and then they switch back into like what's supposed to be normal. And I just was so hoping that was going to happen. But instead it was just, you know, their feet dangling. And I had to reread those paragraphs over and over, because I was just like, no way. And maybe that's just the difference, like with a horror book, like it's not going to have a nice ending, but I couldn't give up. I don't think I did the entire time. And then we end where we end, but I had to reread that so many times. The ending was just completely gruesome, but I should have lost hope when Michelle couldn't find the town.
Yeah, that's when I realized that I think everybody in the town was completely doomed, was when Michelle was trying to get to Adelmuth, to get to Rachel, to tell her about what she found out about the hiker. And she's just driving along and realizes that she completely passed the town. So she's like, that's weird, and turns back around and then drives straight through and still didn't reach the town. And does that repeatedly and realizes she cannot get there. There's no phone calls that are going in. The radio signals are all down. There's no contact with the town. You can't go there. I was at that point realized that everybody who's in there right now, like, they're gone.
Yeah, I was waiting throughout the entire book for like, that was one of my very first notes. I was like, okay, when did the town disappear? And I kept trying to look for it throughout. Ooh. So as soon as we got to that chapter, I was like, oh no, it's over, guys. Yeah, that was so sad.
That's probably when I should have lost hope too. But for me, it wasn't real until Rachel and Finn were actively trying to get out of the town. And then I was like, oh, okay, well, they're not leaving. So they're with everybody else who's dying at this point.
Yeah, I got hope back a little bit there. I was like, they're in their car. Maybe they'll be able to get out.
Yeah.
But no.
Yeah, me too. And then when they couldn't leave the town, I was like, well, I guess I know how this is going to end.
It was just so brutal.
Yeah. It was. All right, so speaking about Rachel and Finn trying to get out of the forest, let's talk about them in the forest. What was that like?
Man, I should be asking you, because you were reading all about that on the plane. You must have been just absolutely losing it. But
Yeah.
like you were talking about earlier, I feel like as soon as, you know, we see what's going on with Finn and Charlie, it's just like, at that point, you can't put it down. And we see that Charlie's like, you know, dragging Lucy off into the woods, like presumably dead, potentially. We've got Finn running after Charlie, fully prepared to basically axe his daughter. And he is being followed by the neighbor, and the neighbor's coming out, and then also like getting taken over by these beings or this spirit, whatever we want to call it. And we've got neighbors killing each other. The whole town just goes into complete chaos. You can't do anything. And it's just like, what is going on? This is about everybody now. Can't trust anyone but yourself. And we get to see Rachel and Finn kind of meet up, like you were saying, in the woods, where they seem to just lock it down right away. And I loved seeing it. Finn was just like, nope, I'm in charge now. Yeah. And I was so glad to see that turn.
Yeah, I do think that their redemption, like helping each other out of the forest, was such a long time coming, almost in like a full character like arc, in my opinion, where you got that redemption that was like so well earned, because for so long in the book, it was so uncomfortable, their relationship. So I did really appreciate them coming together and problem solving.
Yeah, I didn't think earlier on that it would be possible for them to have that full circle moment, at least not in a like realistic, viable way. But I totally bought their redemption. Like the way that it was written, I loved it. I thought it was so necessary, because even though the book, it's a horror book, it doesn't have a happily ever after, it still had that moment where you saw the reconciliation, and it was so needed.
I feel like the intensity with that scene, like if you had to picture yourself where you're dealing with like the spirits of your children talking to you, their children that are lost to you in this moment, begging for you, and to just have to rely on your partner fully and completely and be like, nope, it's not real. It's not real. Yeah. Ignore it. Like I could not get past all of that. And the whole like hand holding thing and like keeping each other, I felt like that was just so well written. I can't say enough good things about the end of this book. It was so good and so awful.
Yeah.
It was really hard for me to read the part when Rachel finally is dealing with the kids talking to her, when she has that moment where she changes and she's like, no, don't you hear them? And all of that. I was like, oh no. Oh no.
I am happy that her and Finn went out loving each other. I thought it was not a happily ever after book, but they got their happily ever after, and I did really like to see that.
No, I totally agree. I think that ending, like, I know it's like the bad ending, but I was like, you know what? At least they left with good delusions and not like ripping their eyes out like other people were.
Yeah, and at that point, there isn't a happily ever after, even if they did make it out. All their children are gone. So I think the ending was so fitting for this book. It was still hard to stomach at the time because you want something good to happen there, but I thought it fit really well.
Yeah, it just goes again into like the whole grieving process and what that was like. Like they did process their grief throughout, and they forgave each other, and like that forgiveness was so important, and they forgave themselves, it seemed like, too, in those moments. I don't know, I was loving that at the end of the book you're like, okay, no, they did truly love each other. They were just messy.
Yeah.
They found their way back to each other, which was amazing.
Yeah.
I was really scared for a minute there that they were going to die at the hands of the townspeople. Oh my God. I thought there was no hope for them at that point. It was terrifying.
Yeah, I was like, oh gosh, I'm about to read a lynching. Like that is so, I was not comfortable for a long time.
Yes. But then I also like held on to hope there too. Once the townspeople were starting to get killed off, I was like, somebody's going to cut them down. Like somebody's going to have mercy on them. But no.
That was awful. I read it so many times.
Why?
But I was just so like, there's no way. Like, and then I would go back and read it and be like, no, I read it right. And I'd be like, did I though? And then
yeah, I feel like there were a couple moments throughout the book when you're like, this can't happen. Like I have to reread it. Oh, I read that correctly.
Like, let me reread it with some more forest noises. Maybe it'll be better this time.
You know? Yeah. No, I was just, as soon as I got to the feet tingling, I was like, and we go back.
Yeah, so wrapping up the book, now we're going to get to the epilogue. What did you guys think of the epilogue?
I was fascinated because in my head, I didn't know if Dalmuth even existed at all. So I kind of thought the whole thing was just gone. Nobody's ever going to go back there. So for these two sheriffs to be driving through was really weird to me. Like, what are they going to find in that town? Is that just a deserted town? Are they going to question that? Like, I don't know. It was very strange.
Yeah, what are they going to find? Who are they going to find? Like, what's left? Like, what's there?
Yeah, I kind of pictured it as if this was going to be some kind of like never ending loop with this like mysterious town that is like taking people, because it seems to have started off in Michigan and now we're in Virginia. And then now they've left Lucy behind, and it feels like it's all about maybe this like one spirit that's now like traveling. I don't know what's going on with that, but I just kept thinking that it was going to repeat and repeat. And I thought maybe the townspeople that are like living there as the insiders might still be the people that maybe they've collected over the years. And then when things start to get quote unquote thin, they start to like come out with their things. This to me seemed like something where you could have book after book after book after book.
Yeah, that's so creepy. I didn't think about that. Yeah, speaking of Lucy though, just standing in the road, that was horrible because the cops did not like they had the creepiest feeling immediately, but there's nothing you could like, you have to pick that girl up. She's standing in the middle of the road.
Yeah, you're gonna leave a 6-year-old on the side. And I'm sure too these like police officers seem to know the family, so I'm sure he was like, dude, Lucy has always been missing a screw or two. She creeps me out. She's been creeping me out. Come on, girl. I gotta take you home. Or somewhere, I guess.
Somewhere instead of nowhere.
Somewhere instead of nowhere.
I had a really hard time. You finally get through the book. You're dealing with all of the feelings. And then you watch someone new deal with this now, like still this evil force. And you're just like, oh, not again.
Yeah.
Like, what's going to happen
Groundhog's
now?
Day.
Yeah. You're just screaming, don't pick up the child.
Yeah, leave her there. Leave her.
Leave her to rot. Just kidding.
And they're like, oh, there's the bars between us and the kid. At least that's comforting. And you're like, no, it's not. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
You
like,
need bars between you and anyone to feel comforted. Get out of there.
Yeah. Especially a 6-year-old. Like, what do you think she's going to do?
Eat your soul.
I mean, and she will. So.
But yeah, I think overall, the epilogue just like left you kind of wanting more, despite the fact that the book was so creepy. Like I was just like, okay, now what's next?
Yeah. Yeah, I did think it was interesting how she was waving at Aiden, like the Aiden thing too. I was like, ooh, is this like a weird passing of the torch where it's like, I'm going to go hunt over here. Bye.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I did not think that is crazy.
Yeah, just something
That's such a cool thought.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you guys so much for joining us as we were discussing Nowhere. We were really privileged to be able to read this book before it came out. By the time that this is posted, you should be able to get access to the book. We really hope you enjoyed as much as we did. I personally won't be going into the woods anytime soon. We are also looking forward to reading The Last Session by Julia Bartz. This is going to be next month's book. So if you haven't had a chance to read it yet, I highly suggest that you go grab that copy before our next episode comes out so that you can join in.
We did get the opportunity to talk to Allison Gunn on a TikTok live, and we will be having some snippets of that conversation over on our socials. So don't forget to check that out. And thank you so much for listening in on this episode, and we'll see you next time.